How are defense costs in a D&O policy handled? When you purchase a management or professional liability policy such as D&O, E&O, or employment practice, there's an issue regarding the defense of future claims and how they'll be handled. The first method is that the policy explicitly says that the insurer has the duty and obligation to provide the insured defense in the event of a claim. This, of course, is known as a duty to defend policy form. It's common in the small business marketplace and in the nonprofit market. It's convenient and it's simple. You have a claim or you believe you have a situation which may give rise to a claim in the future, and you report it to your insurance company. They will assign an attorney from their panel counsel list to your claim, and off you go. The other defense clause or method by which insurers handle the defense of claims is a non-duty to defend or reimbursement type policy form, which is also known as an indemnity policy. Reimbursement or indemnity type policy forms are common in the public company market, as well as larger middle market type accounts as well. Larger financial service firms also will commonly be insured under a reimbursement form. Under a reimbursement or indemnity form, as its name indicates, the insured has their duty to defend themselves in a claim, and their insurer will reimburse the insured for the sums spent in excess of the retention or deductible. Now, a separate issue regarding defense costs to be aware of is whether defense is included within the limits of liability or outside the limits of liability. You may be very familiar that in most general liability policies and business auto liability policies, defense is provided outside the limit of liability, meaning that if your policy has $1 million limit, the insurance company will spend whatever they need to defend you in a claim, and the entire $1 million limit of liability is preserved for actually paying the claim. On the other hand, most management and professional liability policies act conversely, meaning that whatever sums you or your insurer spend on defense are made part of the limit of liability and eat away at your limits of coverage. There are some variations of this, but let's say you have an employment practice liability policy with a limit of $1 million, and your firm is hit with a claim, say sexual harassment, from multiple plaintiffs. In this case, your defense costs could skyrocket. Every dollar spent on defense is one less dollar available to pay potential settlements. And as defense costs stack up, they absorb the limits left to pay the eventual settlement. This is why in management and professional policies, it's important to consider higher limits of liability than just $1 million. Sure, if you're a small firm with less than 10 employees, $1 million may be sufficient. It may not be. But over 10, you should be considering higher limits than $1 million when buying D&O, E&O, employment practice, cyber, and other forms of management and professional. I recommend that when buying your first policy and at every renewal that you ask for options. If you've purchased a management or professional policy in the past at $1 million, ask to see options of $2 and $3 million to see if your budget can afford to move limits up. Lawsuits are not getting less expensive to defend against, and neither are the settlements. Costs continue to go up, and your limits of protection should address these increasing costs. Now, final point when it comes to defense costs and limits. Management and professional policies also have an aggregate limit of liability in addition to their per claim limit of liability. Commonly, the aggregate limit will equal the per claim limit. This aggregate limit is the most your policy will pay for all claims during a single policy term. So as an example, if you have $1 million limit of liability and have a claim that racks up $750,000 in legal and defense costs, that will mean $750,000 in legal and settlement costs. That will mean that your policy only has $250,000 left for any new claims during that policy term. This is another reason for higher limits and looking at limit options when first purchasing or renewing coverage. If you have other questions regarding D&O, E&O, or other management or professional liability coverages, why not give me a call? My contact info is coming up. I'd love to chat and see how we can help you out. Thanks.